We're going to be going over the ICWA. This is welcome to the online edition of a practical guide to the Indian Child Welfare Act. This guide is intended to answer questions to provide a comprehensive resource of information on the Indian Child Welfare Act, the ICWA. Those unfamiliar with ICWA are encouraged to first read the introduction to the guide. Why don't we go ahead and start there? Introduction. From the embryonic days of our nation, Indian tribes have long struggled against the I can't even say that one. Assimilation. Assimilationist. We better hear that one from Google. Assimilationist policies instituted by the United States which sought to destroy tribal cultures by removing Native American children from their tribes and families. In a stark example of such policies, the purpose articulated in the charter of the first boarding school in the 1990s on the Navajo reservation was to remove the Navajo children from the influence of his savage parents. Hence, in my case, the federal government, its boarding school policy for over 100 years, countless lives give testimony to the harsh effects of that policy. My grandfather was taken and put in a boarding school like that. Later on, the federal government failed to protect Indian children from misguided and incentivized child welfare practices by state human service agencies, which they still practice today, which resulted in the unwarranted removal of Indian children from their families and tribes. In fact, in the 1950s and then 60s, the federal government worked on non-Indian organizations such as a Child Welfare League of Americans to remove Indian children from their homes and place those children in non-Indian homes. That was one of my grandfather's. But this is all junk. Let's get to the law. This is just this is how to, they tried to pave it over with the white man real fast for you in the introduction. But let's go ahead and get to the law to this. ICWA Guide Online. Introduction, application. Let's go to application. Disclaimer, a practical guide to the Indian Child Welfare Act is intended to facilitate compliance with the letter and spirit of ICWA and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. So that means this really doesn't mean anything to the courts. They can do whatever they want. It is not legal advice. You should consult competent legal counsel. Legal advice. Good luck finding legal counsel in something that doesn't. This is just an application to something that might be good for the spirit. Rather than rely on a practical guide. Competent advice rather than a practical guide. So, definitions. Child custody proceeding shall mean and include foster care placement, which shall mean any action removing an Indian child from its parent or Indian custodian for temporary placement in a foster home or institution or the home of a guardian or conservator where the parent or Indian custodian cannot have the child returned upon demand, but where parental rights have not been terminated. 2. Termination of parental rights, which shall mean any action resulting in the termination of the parent-child relationship. 3. Providement, which shall mean the temporary placement of an Indian child in a foster home or institution after the termination of parental rights, but prior to or in lieu of adoptive placement, and adoptive placement, which shall mean the permanent placement of an Indian child for adoption, including any action resulting in a final decree of adoption. Such term or terms shall not include a placement based upon an act which, if committed by an adult, would be deemed a crime, or upon a ward in a divorce proceeding or custody of one of the parents. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, those 4 terms are defined under child custody proceeding. Those 4 terms, that's what that defines. So we have those terms understood. Indian child means any unmarried person who is under age 18 and is either A member of an Indian tribe, or B, is eligible for membership in an Indian tribe and is the biological child of a member of an Indian tribe. So we understand what Indian child means. Disclaimer: the above provisions of the Indian Child Welfare Act are set forth to facilitate consideration of this particular topic. Additional federal, state, or tribal law may be applicable. Independent research is necessary to make that determination. So the best practices would be to overarch the existing policy that governs the court system now in the civil courts, or however the white man does, with the Indian affairs, however they do their tribal customs and practices, the overarching. When does ICWA apply? Only two prerequisites must be satisfied for the Indian Child Welfare Act ICWA to apply. The first requirement is the presence of an Indian child as defined by 1903. Emphasis 4. That section defines an Indian child as an unmarried person who is under age 18 and is either A member of an Indian tribe, or B, is eligible for membership of an Indian tribe and is the biological child of a member of an Indian tribe. The second requirement is that the child custody proceeding be one as defined by 1903-1, that is a foster care placement, termination of parental rights, pre-adoptive placement, or adoptive placement. What they're talking about is 1903. Those are sections of the United States Code. You have to go to the United States Code under Indian Affairs to find these codes, and then you'll understand these terms. So it's an overarching effect from these codes to your state codes is how they should practice it, or however they want to implement it. It really doesn't matter to them, as long as you get through the system without complaining. But if you know your rights,